Our next presenter, Lucas Jeetan, the extreme weather impacts within the homeowners insurance markets. Lucas, the floor is yours.
Okay. This is probably the worst time to learn how to work a Mac right now. I'm not getting the file to load, Jada. Resident Mac expert here. Sorry, guys. I can take it. You want to take it? It's up to you.
Oh, you're right. It's up now.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today, and thank you for joining my colleagues and I as we present our capstone research. Couple things to cover here. My scale of analysis is quite large, so for this instance, I've had to shrink it down for a more digestible fashion. I offer you all the tale of two extremes within the homeowners insurance market and climate-related disasters. Oh, and I'm Lucas Jeetan, if that wasn't clear. Tornadoes, hurricanes, wildfires. All three distinct climate-related disasters, all three distinct in their own right and in their own regions in which they occur. All three have shattered records within recent history. Whether it's the EF4 value tornado outbreaks that we see across the Midwest and northern Great Plains and southern Great Plains, or the increasingly intensifying seasonal hurricanes across the Southeast and Northeast, or whether it be the wildfire seasons, which are growing longer within the Southwest, we see unprecedented levels of severe economic costs and rising insurance rates. But how can we further convey the aftermath beyond the impacts to health and well-being? Well, it comes, as I said prior, of extensive loss and structural ruin. These are images from the same extremes with their conservative cost estimates. And I hope these were enough to gather your attention. However, we've known how expensive these storms can be, these systems, these events, and we've understood their impacts to our financial institutions, such as homeowners insurance. And yet, to what extent can we really speak to that? Well, for almost 20 years, we've known that regardless of where you live in the United States, increasing hurricane seasons have a propensity to raise your insurance rates. But again, the average consumer has no way to visualize that or contrast that with years past. Until recently. You see, within the last year, the United States Department of the Treasury has released historically proprietary data in the form of insurance rates aggregated by zip code. And now because I have that data with me, I can then map it in a cohesive manner to show regional differences overlaid with extremes. This is all done in effect to answer this question. How do extreme weather events affect homeowners insurance rates? To answer this again, I've created a map, which I'll share with you, a map in the form of an interactive consumer tool, which you all will have access to maybe after this. We can review your individual zip codes and rates if there's any worry. But again, a consumer tool that you all have access to reduce the informational asymmetry present within this industry. In contrasting how my map is different from all others out on the market currently, I'll share with you my market variables and my meteorological variables that I've used to map. Finally, I'll quantify market shifts, show you patterns and trends that immediately jump out, and then I'll take you through some interesting meteorological and climatological comparisons. So, for my map to regional meteorological extremes, I've chosen the insurer-defined perils, and those are wildfires, hurricanes, tornadoes, and hailstorms. Now, measuring frequency is just the occurrence of an event in a certain amount of time, which we can all understand. But to convey risk and severity, I've decided to use acreage burn counts for wildfires, the enhanced Fujita scale for tornadoes, and hail size in cubic inches for hailstorms, and finally, the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale, otherwise known as the category system. These metrics are all within industry standards and such that calculations from them will be in alignment with the literature. Other meteorological variables I've examined include monthly total precipitation and total snowfall amounts. Because beyond these extremes, it requires a nuanced understanding of how climates are dependent on these other meteorological variables. Now, by no means is this list exhaustive, but the scale necessitates that I trim it down to some extent. So, contrasting the regions by peril. Within the Southwest, we have wildfires, we have intense rain, we have the absence of rain. I'm sure everyone here in California is no stranger to drought conditions. Throughout the Midwest, Southern Great Plains, and Northern Great Plains, we have tornadoes and severe convective storms. And again, throughout the Southeast, Northeast, we have hurricanes and blizzards within the Northeast. Finally, a brief overview showing just the region symbology and how to contrast them. Covering my market variables, which again stem from the Department of the Treasury, we have total percentage change in policy premiums calculated by myself, annual non-renewal rates, claim severity, and claim frequency. In the interest of time, I will only be talking about total change in percentage per policy. Now, for the big reveal. The market state between the years 2018 to 2022. Again, based on the novel nature of this data, these are the years available. This is done in the hopes that in future time, as data becomes more available, I can expand my analysis, but as it stands, I only have 5 years of available data. What jumps out right away is the increasing trends within the Southwest, Northwest, and Midwest. Interestingly enough, we see a decreasing trend in the Southern Great Plains and Southeast. Now, this challenges my expected variables, as I imagined that the increasingly intensifying hurricane seasons would cause insurance rates to skyrocket throughout Florida, the Panhandle, much of the Southeast, and even a majority of the Gulf states. But as you can see, there's an overwhelming decreasing trend. Now, for numerous reasons that are well beyond the scope of this presentation, that will be covered in my thesis, so by all means, please check that out. But in conveying how these trends jump out at us, we must further understand how we assess insurance rates. So I have for us today FEMA's own National Risk Index. And as you may find yourself living in one of these many zip codes with risk zones far beyond our control, you may ask, what defines risk? Well, it is a rather ambiguous classification, and yet I strive to elucidate that for the average consumer. So, I prepared for you today a regional risk profile summarizing some key details throughout the regions of the Northwest and Pacific Southwest. My primary insurance peril examined for these two regions are wildfires, and my meteorological risks include prolonged drought conditions and excessive precipitation. Now, those two meteorological risks are in the form of my total precipitation values, and I've categorized these risks via their relation to the North American monsoon. Now, while not immediately apparent, those two things are very much correlated. The monsoon season precedes the fire season here in North America, and to understand both is to understand how frequency and both severity of fire changes and how that influences insurance rates. I've picked out a couple extreme cases just to show you that climate change related disasters and their effects on the market create winners and losers far and wide. Within Gadsden, Arizona, we have municipalities and zip codes experiencing drastic decreases in their overall HOI rates, whereas in Northern California, areas adjacent to fires are experiencing unprecedented financial hardship. With a median value of $1,604, this could be to the effect of a $300 climate tax that you'll have to pay annually just because you may live near a past event which may not have affected you, but you now front the cost. Performing some statistical analysis on my frequency counts and severity calculations, we've mapped climatological data of wildfires across the Northwest and Southwest against wildfires in the same region of 2018 and 2022. And what we see is a stark increase in the amount of small fires per region and generally increasing trends within large and medium fires. Fire classification is dependent on total acreage accounts. Small fire is any burn that is under 1,000 acres. Medium is under 50,000 acres, and a large is anything above 50,000 acres. And again, when we look at this map, we now see it mapped against these fire perimeters. Where you see the most apparent rates of increase via zip code, you see them directly adjacent or within known fire perimeters that occurred throughout this year. Now, further looking at the comparisons between these two climatological periods, we've seen that changes within fire frequency span all biomes within the Pacific Northwest and Southwest. Within the Pacific Northwest, we have temperate rainforests. Within the Southwest, we have a Mediterranean climate, which we reside in. And we also have more desert and arid shrublands throughout the Southwest. And yet, in all of those, we see the literature suggest a rapid increase in frequency. From my own calculations, I've calculated a nearly 2 times increase in those regions for these years. Again, the literature further supports this, showing fire frequency peaking in the summer months, which correlate to the summer monsoon, and that influences how I can share my precipitation data with you here, because I've then taken the liberty of mapping that precipitation data throughout the summer monsoon and winter seasons. Before us now is the Standardized Precipitation Index, which is a useful way to categorize drought indices. I've utilized this indice as opposed to other ones to further convey how drought conditions can relate to wildfire risk and wildfire frequency. Moving on, when we look at the monsoon season, which is characterized by intense rainfall, we see the emergence of extreme drought conditions, which is unprecedented and agrees with current literature findings. We've seen the monsoon to weaken, and with the monsoon weakening, that creates drought conditions, and drought conditions are conducive to fire. And as we can see from the past slides, fire is conducive to a risk in HOI rates. Finally, I'll leave you with my conclusions. Maybe not the most substantive, but clear nonetheless. The increased frequency and severity of wildfires within the North and Southwest suggests the increasing trend of insurance premiums to continue. Persistent drought conditions will continue to create environments conducive to fires. These compounding factors will motivate underwriters to assess higher levels of risk to the impacted surrounding areas. Bit impromptu, but I'd like to thank my chair and my 2 advisors who couldn't be here today, Dr. Mark Jacobson, Dr. Gilade Steinberg, and my chair, Dr. Corey Gabriel, for all the help throughout this very rapid year. And finally, I'd like to thank my family who is with me in spirit here. So thank you guys. Any questions? Yeah, you guys got it. You guys are all experts here. If anyone would like to see how their zip code differs by rate or extreme with any of the variables, please come see me. I have it mapped on my laptop here for you. Yes, sir.
Does homeowners insurance rates vary with the value of the underlying real estate? And if so, how did you adjust for that across the country since the value of real estate is so disparate, say coastline versus Midwest?
Right. So the zip code rates in policy, the changes in the zip code policy premium rates, again, are aggregated by zip code and adjusted for inflation and to be reflective of their property value. So the rate you see is standardized.
What like non-climatological variables would you expect to cause like confounding trends in home insurance rates? Like anything besides climate change that might influence long-term trends in the insurance rates?
Yeah, absolutely. So this goes back to my slide showing the deviation from my expected values. Again, in the Southeast and Gulf states, there was a decrease. Now, my experts and I attributed that to more stringent building codes, coastal armory, coastal resilience, just any methods from regions that have been known to experience these extremes more frequently, like hurricanes in Florida. We know the season well, and they're well adjusted.
Thank you. Great presentation. One question about the West Coast specifically. Obviously not dependent on climate or climate change, but do you look at seismic activity and earthquake, severity and exposure in those areas?
Yes. So with regard to insurance risk, both HOI, structural, varying through all classifications and all perils, I did initially set out to cover all climate and environmental related disasters. What a Herculean task that was. I originally started my analysis in California, and my advisor quickly said, hey, this is a nationwide issue, you should expand it. So I unfortunately had to leave the geophysics for the geophysicists and keep my tools to myself in the meteorology department, but unfortunately, it won't make it into my thesis.